Of course. Sorry, everyone. First time using this platform. Didn't realize my mic was muted. Hopefully you can hear me now. I'll start over. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our first Canadian Email Summit sponsored webinar. My name is Matthew Vernhout, and I'm the founder of the Canadian Email Summit, alongside my partners at the Response Marketing Association. The Canadian Email Summit brings together email marketers, technology leaders, and industry experts to explore trends, challenges, and innovations shaping the future of email. Today, we're pleased to be joined by our sponsor, Mailora, for a timely conversation about one of the biggest forces transforming our industry, AI. Before we start, I'd like to invite you all to join us on September 24th here in Toronto at our live event. Our session today is titled Email Deliverability Signals to Sending Decisions, How AI is Changing Email Operations. We're looking forward to hearing from the team at Mailora, their perspective on where this technology is already making an impact and what it means for email teams today and where things will be headed in the future. With that, let's get started. I'd like to introduce Delora to the stage, who will be hosting the rest of the event today. Thank you for your participation. And welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's so nice to meet you. And just a very quick note. We're not very strict over here, but a quick note. If you do have any questions, please pop them into the chat. No question is too big or too small. And we'll make sure that we leave time at the end to answer every single one if we can. But without further ado, let me just get into it. So hello, a massive hello to everyone that is joining us today. And welcome to From Deliverability Signals to Sending Decisions, How AI is Changing Email Operations. And I think this is a session that a lot of us are really going to get excited about, because the webinar today is presented by Mailora in association with the Canadian Email Summit. And I'm absolutely thrilled that you're all here. So who is Mailora? Let me tell you. Mailora is a deliverability intelligence platform that helps email teams understand what's really happening with their email performance and make better sending decisions. And I think we all have had a few moments within our careers where an email has gone wrong and we have no idea how to fix it. Today, I would say that teams have more data than ever. Inbox placement to reputation to SMT responses, campaign activity, the list goes on and on. But whenever something goes wrong, the real challenge actually still remains. What the heck happened? Why did it happen? And what should we do next? So that's essentially what we're going to be talking about today. We're going beyond Deliverability 101 with no lengthy discussions. It's all fun around here. We're not really going to be speaking about SPF, DKIM, DMARC, or basic opt-in practices. I think we've all had enough time in this space to know how to do all of those. Instead, we're actually going to explore how teams can connect signals, distinguish correlation from causation, and actually identify problematic traffic to help protect our base and to protect the flow of traffic that we have going to our campaigns. We're also going to touch on some AI, but using AI in intelligent ways, looking at alerts that actually help with explainable decisions to help with the smallest interventions. So, want to do one final little intro about Mailora. It was founded by the wonderful Tilak Pujari with a very, very simple mission, and that was to turn fragmented deliverability signals into actionable intelligence so that we marketeers can actually start sending with confidence. And on that final note, one of you that attends live today will receive an official Mailora certificate of learning and development. So it can just show that you've really done a lot more to participate, not only to participate, to grow your own personal development and learning. All right, so let's just get on with the conversation and let's meet today's guest. So Cece, do you want to turn on your camera?
Sorry, here I am.
We have my buddy, and some of you are probably thinking, how could she call him Cece? So his name is Chaitanya Shinta, but he likes to be called Cece. And I'm going to hand over to you very quickly to give our wonderful audience an introduction to who you are and what we're going to be discussing.
No, it's always great to be here, and it's fun chatting with you. For the audience, welcome to the webinar. I'm Chaitanya, and I've spent most of my career looking at email infrastructure and deliverability, a little over 2 decades now. Started as a postmaster, then to deliverability, to co-founding a startup, and now in my current capacity, I had product at Helon Engage, an email infrastructure solution that helps large senders and email service providers build and operate high e-volume in their infrastructure, right? Some of the large senders that you know today use Helon Engage, like Microsoft or Emarsys or Netcore or LinkedIn. If you're getting any email from LinkedIn, that's from us, right? And in my personal capacity, I've been an advisor to Mailora, so that's what brings us here. So today, I'm hoping we can make deliverability feel a little less technical and a little more practical, but let's see where the conversation takes us.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for that intro. And actually, this leads me straight onto the first question. I think even though I said in the intro, we're not going to cover the basics, I think there is a little bit of foundation that we need to do, because there's a lot of juicy things that are going to come out of this topic today. But when we just start from the beginning, when we talk about email deliverability, CC, what do we actually mean? And essentially, how is that different from an email simply being delivered?
Okay, so email delivery is more about a receiving server accepting the message. So as when we send an email, as long as the receiving server accepts the message, delivery is done. But then deliverability comes what happens after the message has been accepted. So it's all about whether it has reached the recipient in a useful way. The traditional definition of deliverability is more about whether the mail has landed in inbox or spam. As long as the mail has landed in inbox, it's good. But then the later nuances that have sort of added to our world is that as the mail delivered on time. Let's say if there's a flash sale that's happening, but a mail arrives like 7 hours late, it is technically delivered to inbox, but then but commercially it's a failure, right? So
yes,
I'd probably treat email delivery as a technical event, but
yes.
then deliverability is all about the quality of the outcome. So it's more about quality of the outcome that we wanted to spend time in today.
See, already gems being dropped, because I think that a lot of us actually look at delivered and even deliverability, and we look at inbox placement. If we get an inbox placement that is over 98%, it's a pass. But you're absolutely right. The time of delivered, those small signals are not actually captured. And I think there are definitely things that we can be doing more to understand that metric a lot more. And so that leads me on to the next thing. What are some of the biggest factors that determine whether an email reaches the inbox or not?
Okay, so there are many factors. I'd probably, maybe put them under maybe 4 broader buckets. So I don't want to go too technical into them, but then there are broadly 4 buckets, right? One is, let's start with the audience quality. Who are you sending to? How are they acquired? How recently they have engaged? So on and so forth. Then there is identity and reputation, which is more of a mailbox provider, signal that we'll see. More on the domain and IP history, authentication, consistency, and all of that. Then there is recipient reaction. How recipients are engaging with your emails. How many of them are positive engagements? When I say positive engagements, it's all about opens, clicks, or forwards, or how much time they're spending on the email. Versus negative engagement, which is more about complaints, or they're just ignoring, deleting the email without even opening it, and stuff like that. So or unsubscribes. So these are all the negative engagement metrics, right? So
right.
And then lastly, there is sending behavior. What is the frequency with which we are sending, or is there a volume spike, or sudden changes in traffic, or there's a traffic, all of these would form as the bucket of, or maybe all the factors that you'd probably want to look at, which affects the email deliverability.
Yeah. Okay. And do you know what? I'm so happy that you spoke about that, because I have a confession. where I currently work at the moment, it's an online fashion retailer, and I believe we encounter something very similar. So if you permit me some time, I actually just want to let the audience know of a real life scenario where deliverability was actually impacted. And I think we can use this to kind of decouple what was going on, but also pull apart how the average marketer or just a normal marketer can be able to kind of identify certain signals and make the right choices to fix it. So
there's nothing like a real world story, right? So we can get started. Yes.
It's like story time. I hope you guys have got your cup of tea. So when I joined the business, essentially we went from sending 5 emails a week, and let's just say there was a database of around 2 million, and I think the share of revenue from CRM was less than 5%. So it was quite low. I was brought in to kind of turn things around, start looking at segmentation, increase send frequencies of send, the whole typical thing that you would be asked to do when joining a new company. But what happened is I significantly increased not only the sophistication of the campaigns, but also the commercial activity of the program. So I went from 5 emails a week to around 17 a week. There was definitely a lot more segmentation and a lot more targeting. So from a optics view, in terms of revenue, conversions, and engagement, everything on the surface looked fantastic. Well done, Adriana, you're doing a great job. Wow. But when I started to dig down a little deeper, and the key signal for me was I started to notice that my own emails were receiving maybe a couple hours later. After I noticed this trend for about a couple of days, I decided to dig a lot more deeper. And what I found essentially is that we had a deliverability issue with particular ISPs. So again, on the surface, it looks fantastic. Everything looks like it's going really well, but there are a very big group of customers, and I would say around 20% of the database that were receiving all of our comms a lot later than everyone else. And I think this also speaks, Cece, to what you were talking about in terms of latency. Yes, the platform showed me that everything was delivered because it was sent, but there was a big 5-hour gap between when we had hit send versus when the recipient actually received the campaign. So, I think that this is actually a really good discussion point in terms of let's break it down.
Okay. So the first thing, when you said 20%, I'd probably see in my mind, I was thinking, oh, this is definitely not Gmail. It should be one of our Yahoo and Outlook.
It was.
Right. So anyhow, so I think the important clue in your story is yes, as you rightly said, it's latency, and it's just one mailbox provider. Not necessarily rejecting the email, but it's just slowing down, deferring the acceptance in terms of delivery, right? This is usually when mailbox providers see a shift against a baseline, right? So there's a shift against a baseline, and then they see it's not necessarily that they're not saying that your email is bad. So it's more like the symptom is more like, hey, there's something changed, and we're just cautious about accepting your email, all of the email. So that's what it is. It's not the 7-hour delay or 5-hour delay that you mentioned. It's not binary, as it's not binary, as that shows deliverability is not binary, right? So the right investigation here has to be provider specific, and we go deeper into, let's say, why Outlook or Yahoo has shifted, right? Shifted their behavior against maybe Gmail when it has remained normal, right? So if we, again, let's say at a campaign level, you might not see a big shift, but then if you go deeper into mailbox provider level and then see metrics against each of these mailbox providers, you might see a shift in one or the other metrics. That's how you narrow down, and before doing any kind of fix, you're trying to actually narrow down onto what's going wrong, or what shift has happened because of which Outlook is not completely liking our email. So maybe that's where the investigation goes to.
Okay, so essentially there's a baseline, and all of these ISPs are used to a particular baseline. And I think, as you're saying, we need to understand what our baseline is and increment based on that. And what I stupidly done, imagine being in this industry for so long, what I stupidly done was just say, they're all active, let's go. And fire off the campaigns without thinking, yes, there are some ISPs that are very used to receiving a particular percentage from this retailer every day or every other day. And I just flipped it on its head and started adding more campaigns. It was the same number of subscribers, but it was the intensity of how many
frequency with which you are touching them sort of jumped.
Exactly. So I think those are one of the key signals, like you said. It's the shifts, the relative shifts, and making sure that we have a gradual shift, looking at the baseline and gradually increasing. And that would have definitely been a saving grace had I have thought in that way. I know some of you are probably thinking, duh, but normally you would apply that type of logic for sale. Right? Or when you're going into
let's say every Black Friday you'd actually see things shooting up.
But on a normal Tuesday in the month of March, when nothing is happening.
See, I'd say more email does not automatically equal worse deliverability, right? So it's
okay.
I'd never say that.
Okay.
Commercially, there are commercial needs where you'd probably want to bump up the email volume. The risk is the shape of change, as you rightly said. There's a baseline that you've established, right? So the frequency jumped, maybe the recipient exposure is increased, or maybe negative signals had more opportunities to accumulate, right? So from a mailbox provider standpoint, all of these are changes relative to the historical pattern, right? And not just the raw number of emails, right? So that's where I think things would have maybe affected in terms of delivery. And for all the marketers out there, commercial success and deliverability stress can coexist for a while. It's completely okay for them to coexist for a while. It should not be a long-term scenario, but then at least for a while you can probably coexist. That's why in fact I'd probably go back and say that's why the monitoring for the trend of these metrics is extremely important, right? So it's just a change definitely requires more attention. Any change you do to your email campaign requires more attention. You might want to go deeper into each of these metrics and monitor them.
Okay, so fine. I think I saw someone said that they've been having the same issue with Outlook for months. I feel your pain, and I actually hope that we're going to go through in this webinar. Like I said, it's a discussion, and we're using my faux pas as the kind of launch pad for this conversation. So I think, yes, it's great that Cece was able to help me identify that it was the shape of change. But then how do I actually know that I have a problem? I'm obviously a consultant, and I know that faux pas doesn't really show that I'm a consultant, but I'm a consultant by trade. So I knew exactly what I needed to do to go and fix or look at the situation. And obviously from, where I was working in my situation, the warning sign was quite obvious. But deliverability problems aren't always that obvious. So what actual signals, right? Let's take the person who's also commented that they've had an issue with Outlook too. What are the signals that someone should be looking at?
From your ESP reports, I think what we've just discussed about, right? So let's say Gmail is normal, but Outlook is suddenly weak. These are the first top level signals that you would want to see. Is it for a mailbox provider specific, or is it a global campaign average that is going down? Because the the way you want to address these issues would be very different if it's a provider specific versus a global decline in the performance, right? Then there is delivery latency, which we again spoke about. Emails taking progressively longer to arrive can be an early warning. It's not like, this is more maybe a precursor to a bigger issue that you might see in the future, right? And bounces and temporary failures, especially if they change rather than sitting at a stable baseline, right? And similarly with the complaints, you could probably get maybe 0.1% complaint rate and still be landing in inbox. But then if that, it's not a hard and fast rule saying that 0.1% complaint rate is going to ruin your campaigns. But if this baseline keeps you steady in your inbox, you're happy with it. But then if that baseline changes from, let's say, 0.1 to, let's say, 0.2, then you are at a problem, right? So keep that baseline, or maybe, maybe 0.05 to 0.1 can also create a problem. It's sometimes, that keeping it a baseline where things are stable for you is extremely important. And I think most of the marketers today also use inbox placement, and along with their dashboards and reputation trends like Mailora, right? It's a useful external evidence, that the problem is where the problem is. It gives a better visibility into where the problem is, right?
Let's break this down a little bit then. How do we know? So you've mentioned, okay, so if someone is trying to identify what the problem is or where the problem is, how are they able to, what are the key signals then to identify if it is across providers? Would they be looking at the deliverability by domain to see, is it all landed?
Yeah. So basically what you're doing is, from if you're using just the ESP performance, then break it down by mailbox provider and see if the performance has been, relatively consistent, or is it going down. So that's what you're looking at. Or if you're using an inbox placement or reputation dashboards, then that they actually show the external signals, sort of an outside in perspective, right? So how many mails or could have landed in inbox or spam. Again, this is not a true real world representation, but it directionally is extremely useful evidence that will help us narrow down onto the problem and solve it, right? So again, there are all these signals. But I'd probably see this from a marketer standpoint, right? So marketer has a lot of things to do in their day. But then if you look at all these, if you throw all these signals at a time, and then it's not like every signal is coming at the consistent times, right? So there are few signals that come to you at right after delivery, at the time of delivery. In fact, these are more a mailbox provider signals, which is more during the mail transaction that is happening. You would probably see that with the latencies and everything, right? And there are few signals that come right after the campaign. There are few signals that come maybe after a day or two after the campaign, like Google Postmaster and everything. So the signals are not coming at the same time. They're like spread throughout the spectrum, right? And to make sense of all of this is a bit overwhelming. I can understand for a marketer, right? So I'd probably maybe segue into the AI component of how we can probably read all of these through this. At the basic, I've seen teams, let's say, just upload a CSV file and asking what has happened. That's the on this end of the spectrum, which is extremely basic, right? But then a lot more intelligent and productive teams, what I've seen them doing is to connect all of these data sources to a single AI monitoring platform, right? So and then what you get is it sort of you use AI in terms of understanding all of these trends that are happening, and trust me, you don't want to get deeper into all of these trends manually and then looking at it. It's a lot of time and effort for a marketer to go about doing all of this. But I'd probably recommend to spend a bit of time in connecting all of these signals into one single system, so that it does all the
Analysis.
the analysis, and maybe just throw. I've seen, so I've been this is one of the experiments that we've been running, right? So I've built a small a deliverability bot,
Wow.
bots, right? Which sort of understands signals from historical delivery logs, from, let's say, from real-time mailbox provider transactions, and at the same time, some external sources also sort of come in, and it does all of this analysis. It does all of this analysis, and it just, on Slack, I call the bot and say, hey, what's happening with so and so domain, and then it sort of gives me a beautiful narrowed down onto, what's happening, where are things stuck, what could be possible reasons, and it goes into suggesting, what should be the next thing that you'd probably want to do, right? So it goes to that level. In that sense, I think I'd suggest most of the marketers to spend some time. You can actually vibe code this. You don't even need programming skills.
What did you say? Vibe code it?
You can actually vibe code it. You spend a day or two, and you can vibe code it, and you can have this bot running on your Slack, which does all the analysis for you. All you need to know is a bit about APIs, which sort of where the data resides, or databases with internal databases where the data resides. Just connect and get started.
Wow. Okay. Do you know what?
So,
I think that's brilliant, because I went the manual route. It took me.
Trust me, it takes a lot of time and energy.
Yeah, it took me forever. But now you're like talking about, actually use AI. In my mind, I sometimes think, can I earn the badge of calling myself a consultant? Because I didn't even think, let me use AI to analyze this large body of data to help me identify, one, the signals, but two, the legitimate fixes that I could do. So, CC, honestly, you deserve an award, because that's true. And I think even where you talked on earlier about just looking at the different providers, and I think ESPs, and I don't want to disrespect ESPs, because we all work with them and they are brilliant tools, but there is only so much an ESP can really give you when it comes to really trying to understand what's going on with your data, especially when it relates to things that happen outside of the platform. So I know that Mailora have actually a really great intuitive tool that helps you kind of monitor inbox placement, provides these recommendations. So I feel like for anyone that's on the call that feels like actually their ESP reporting doesn't really do enough, especially that person that's having issues with Outlook at the moment, it might be worth just checking different tools and seeing if just plugging into something like Mailora, this is not, a plug, but just so that you can start seeing the wealth of data that's out there, and it might actually help you resolve the issues that you're having. And so I guess, and this actually leads on quite nicely. So if I suddenly see performance decline within my data set, how do I know whether I have a deliverability problem versus simply having a very rubbish campaign that hasn't performed well? And I feel like you're going to give me a little model here.
Okay. So maybe I'll go into my own mental model, which is also translated into the bot that I've done. So the investigation that it does, it follows the same set of rules. It's basically a replication of my mental model, right?
You need to tell us what the mental model is, CC. Don't.
Yeah. I'm getting there. Right. So so let's look at this, right? So I'd probably do how would I do a manual analysis? Like, say, forget about AI. I'm just looking at this manually, right? So I'd start with where, is the issue everywhere, is the performance decline everywhere, or is it only for mailbox provider, for a certain set of maybe list or a segment that is creating a problem, or a specific campaign that has gone down, but the rest of the campaigns are doing good, but only one campaign that has gone down. So where actually it gives us, it sort of gives us a blast radius in that sense, right? So where you're actually looking at is a bigger problem, or a campaign specific problem that you're looking at, right? So once you nail that down, then you go and ask, when did this start, right? So is it only, again, did it start just for this campaign, meaning the start of the campaign, and then we have seen, or mid of the campaign, meaning, if it has, like, for example, if you've seen a decline sometime in the middle of the campaign, right? So then you'd probably see that, okay, my campaign started good, but somewhere during the course of campaign, the mailbox providers did not like, what they've seen, or maybe the engagement has been negative, which is why they would have put a rule, and then the performance thereby, they sort of goes down, right? Or things like that. So when is extremely important. In some cases, you would not find it right in the campaign. Sometimes you might want to look at last 30 days performance and see, was it a gradual decline, or is it like a sudden drop or a gradual decline? All of this. That brings to the next one, which is, we have seen where, and then when, and then what changed, right?
Right.
What changed, as again, this is again, we've spoken about it a couple of times before. What changed against my baseline? Did the volume change? Did the frequency change? Did the audience change? Acquisition source change? Content changed? Domain changed? Or infrastructure changed? Could be anything. Right? So what changed is you're trying to nail down some of these. So once you have this, where, when, and what, I think you would have pretty much have a fair understanding of directionally where the problem is, and what, at least you would have understand where the problem is and what is the impact, or the impact radius of the problem, right? Then you'd probably want to address it specifically for that one, right? So that's the fix that you would want to apply.
Yeah. Okay. I quite like that. I like the breakdown of the mental model in terms of looking, and I love the term looking at the blast radius. I think that's, for me, that's like CSI talk, like we're investigators, when, I don't even want to get too technical, but like when someone gets a pow, and then they're like, oh, we can see that the blast of the splatter. Taking it too far here, but it reminds me of that, like, how far wide does the problem reach? And that's what I take from blast radius. And I think that's really an important signal to look at when trying to identify what the issue is or where the issue is. And also just like when the issue started, because even at the moment, we're seeing, I'm just giving all away the things that are happening right now, but we're seeing a particular decline with a certain customer group. And rightly so, the CEO is a little bit concerned, like, we have a decline as we're heading into peak. And his first question was, when the hell did this start? And so,
that's sort of a business peak, but then from deliverability standpoint, the when could be very different. But then
but exactly. So just looking at the framework of when did it start, you can actually start to pull apart that the issue may be isolated to a certain time period, or do you know what I mean? So it might not actually be an ongoing issue. It could have been an issue in that moment that now maybe is affecting something later on down the line, or it could be a continuous problem. So I think I've definitely looked at different ways of interpreting those signals, and I think that mental model is a nice way of how to interpret the signals if you don't have all of the relevant tools around you. I saw someone had also just commented that they kind of look at the subscriber level, so inbox placement versus spam complaint, and I think that is like next level.
That's next level. Let's say when you go to subscriber level, right? Let's say how are my recent subscribers performing versus my older subscribers, and there are, again, you can actually drill it down, when you
Yeah.
in quest of identifying what has changed, you would actually drill down much further until the time that you find that shift, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. But again, just the translation of this mental model, you can actually do that into a Claude skill file, into, if you're using Claude or any LLM. I use Claude personally. um, uh, Translate that into a skill file, which essentially does this exact sequential analysis, and then
Wow.
gets and tries to identify the problem. So that's how the mental model sort of translated into, a
An
a
AI
Claude skill
script.
file, which sort of, gets you that.
I really am behind with using Claude. I wonder if some of you guys online are actually the person that has the Outlook issue. Maybe you need to upload the data into Claude if you have permissions from the business and see if it's able.
Yeah,
Oops.
yeah,
Oh, CC's
yeah.
in agreement.
What LLMs are you permitted to use is again very dependent on every company. So use hence I'm not taking any specific technology or specific LLM in my conversation. So up to you, but just take the mental model and then try to apply it. It will deliver really good results.
Yes.
This
Okay.
is not the only way. This is not the only way. Somebody can come up with a better mental model, better skill file, which can actually do a deeper analysis. uh, but then this worked for me, so yeah.
I think it's great. So, like, even just to recap for anyone that's taking notes, like the mental model essentially is asking yourself three sets of questions that you take away to go and investigate. Where is the issue happening? So, the blast radius. When did the issue start? And then what actually changed? And those three things, in terms of that cognitive thinking, should allow you to, like, will shape one, what the issue and the landscape of the issue, and then you'll be able to dice it down and create a strategy of how to fix it now that you know those three core things. And I think that actually leads on quite nicely to the next topic, which is, do you become Bob the Builder and fix it yourself? Or do you call an expert? Like, when is the best time? Or how do you know that the issue is enough for you to fix yourself, and versus knowing when to actually call an expert? Because I don't know.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so if in the so I'd probably recommend every marketer or even a deliverability personnel to go deeper with the analysis first, right? So, unless you identify the problem, you're not thinking about any fixes, right? Somebody can come up and say, hey, stop the campaign right now, but then why, right? So unless you identify the problem, just not talk about the fixes. So identification of the problem is important, right? In that quest, and using your own mental model, not necessarily this mental model, but any mental model that you apply, right?
Yeah.
Are you able to drill down right from, let's say, a performance decline, which is a very high level metric, to saying, hey, this segment, in your case, this segment of audience caused, which were introduced at this point of time, have, this was the root cause for a problem that we are seeing today. Are you able to deduce that? Are you able to confidently deduce that? If you're able to confidently deduce that, which means you have visible metrics that show, this is the reason why you're seeing a decline. If you have visible metrics to tell you that, then you don't need an expert. You can actually fix it, because you have already identified the problem, and then you might want to fix it again if it's an incremental change. Now, there are
Yeah.
still few fixes which you could probably identify, but this could be, which could carry a significant amount of risk. Like, maybe I have to pause all the emails because reputation is so screwed up. I have to pause all the emails for the next 30 days.
Yeah.
Those are the
Yeah.
kind of decisions you might not want to take,
Yeah.
single-handedly, and you might want to involve a deliverability personnel to see if they can actually find a better solution. Or maybe
Yeah.
these are the kind of things that you would still want a deliverability personnel.
Yeah.
But there are many cases where you will see a performance decline, but you cannot simply nail down onto what is causing it, what is the trigger for it. This is always like uh, when I was actively doing deliverability, I used to say this, right? So deliverability is something like you're seeing a half of a picture, and then you're trying to paint the rest of the half to identify the problem. So, it's sort of vague. It's sort of vague, but then you need a lot of experience. You need a lot of, understanding about email infrastructure to actually deduce and say, hey, this could be a problem. So there are some visible signals. If you're able to identify the visible signals, you don't need an expert. You're all good with it, as long as it's an incremental change. But then if it requires a significant shift in your marketing strategy, then consult a deliverability personnel, see if there's a better way to do it. That's one way of doing it. The other thing is, let's say when you're not able to identify any problem, there is no visible shift. You're not able to pin, nail down as to where the problem is or why this occurred, right? So that's when you probably want to involve a deliverability personnel who would probably go deeper into deeper layers of email. Like, for example, hey, were the emails accepted in the first moment, or is it like, they've been retried multiple times for the acceptance? There could be a lot of these things with nuances, which typically a marketer would not be able to see. That's where a deliverability personnel would probably come in. Again, some of it AI can probably help you identify, at least the pattern identification AI can help. But then there are still a lot of cases where, maybe imagine this, right? So if you're able to identify, let's say 40-50% of the problems by yourself, let's say, AI can probably take it to, let's say 60 or 70%, which with its own capabilities. But then for the rest, you would definitely need an expert.
Okay. And you know what's interesting? I did have a sneak peek at the questions, and there's a lot about AI. So I will try and make sure that I leave enough time for you to answer these questions. And what I will say, because I should have made a note of your name. So sorry, but I think it was, I don't want to say Sydney. Sydney has Claude now.
Nice.
Make sure you use it. But I will say, when we're on the topic of fix it yourself or call an expert, and with my particular issue that I had, and I will be so honest, this issue was literally about 3 months ago. What I had understood just by doing the preliminary search is that it was an Outlook issue. Like I said, it was 20% of the database. So what I ended up doing was fixing it myself by using the Halo sending strategy. So essentially drip feeding back in the Outlook users over time. So I would only take 5% of the total subscriber number, send to them, and even that 5%, I would throttle the sends. So they would get every hour, a batch of that 5% would go through. And they would go through with our normal BAUs. So essentially using the good behavior of our BAUs to allow my silly little Outlook to piggyback off of that. And I took this very long-winded, slow approach for about 2 weeks until I knew that I could reintegrate Outlook fully without having to do that. It is tedious. It does take a bit more time, but you look like a goddamn genius in front of the C-suite if you're able to fix it without using specialist help, So perhaps you might want to look at that, but we are going to leave time to answer some of those questions. But I just thought, let me tell you guys how I ended up kind of alleviating my deliverability issue. It was a bit more tedious, but it fixed the problem, which is great, And so I guess the kind of wrapping up, because I really do want to give you lots of time to answer the questions because there's loads. I guess preventing the next problem, I think we've talked about fixing it yourself, being Bob the Builder, using AI to kind of help you go the extra mile. But then when that actually isn't enough, and I really liked what you pointed out, there's so many back-end signals that we don't see from a front-face user that only specialists will actually understand and will be able to discern and really pick out what the key problem is. And I think even then, because I know with marketers, we have a really tough job of One, being able to do everything whilst creating the strategy, whilst also being technically minded to fix the majority of these things ourselves because there isn't budget to call in a specialist. I think platforms like Mailora, and there are others, they actually have a tool that helps you understand what's happening without needing to be a deliverability expert yourself. So they're essentially an AI baked into something quite nice, that's easy to use, like an iPhone. Sorry, Android users, but iPhone is just easier. So, I think explore, when you're looking for a new email system, you take the time and you shop around and you let all of them wine and dine you and take you out. I think we should be doing the same when it comes to these tools, helping us with these big real life issues. Because once you get into a deliverability rut and you have high targets to meet, oh my goodness, can you really enjoy your meal at night knowing that your director is going to call you in the morning and ask for a meeting? No, you cannot. So shop around.
Agree.
Right? So let's just kind of wrap up so we can get to the juicy questions, because I don't want to keep people waiting too long. So how can we prevent the next problem? Like I said, we talked about fixing the deliverability, but ideally we don't really want to get to the point where we're even doing that. So what can we be doing proactively just to make sure we prevent the problem from coming, if it, as much as we can?
I think the first step is to, build a baseline. Traditionally, we've heard multiple times where, there are these hard thresholds that you don't want to cross when it comes to any, let's say complaints, 0.1%. If you cross 0.1%, then you're screwed. There are these, hard and fast rules, but then deliverability isn't like that. So it's always against a baseline, right? So you'd want to draw a baseline of where you are today, whether it is, the volume baseline, the frequency baseline, what is the provider mix, what is the current inbox placement, if you're tracking it. If you're not, you should be. Complaints, engagement, what is the average time that you are taking to deliver the emails per mailbox provider. So just draw a baseline where you are right now, right?
Okay.
So and it's not about being in a red or green status. It's not just that. So any changes that we bring about, or any campaigns that we do, is always measured against this baseline, right? So you can always measure against this baseline, right? So let's say, like for example, what you sort of opened this conversation with, like, if you're going to increase the frequency, right? So when you increase the frequency, you monitor, when I introduce one more campaign to the same audience, how is my baseline changing, right?
Yeah.
So if that change is moving quite ahead at some mailbox provider, or some some let's say some engagement metric, or let's say or any metric that is sort of deviating, you might want to slow down a bit. You might want to see. It's all about introducing changes in a very controlled fashion. Now, we've heard a lot of things about introducing changes in controlled fashion, but then how do you measure that control? This is how you measure it. You draw a baseline and then see for all these metrics, and then see introducing new audience, how is it changing against the baseline? So that's how you sort of introduce and reduce the blast radius, as you rightly say.
Love the blast radius.
Right. So yeah.
Okay.
That's how you'd probably want to prevent it, right? So it starts with knowing your baseline and then noticing these changes early in the system. Then actually, a mailbox provider is actually after acting on it. It's sort of extremely reactive that way.
So would it make sense then to create a dashboard like that actually keeps an eye on your baseline? Because if I'm being honest, even me managing a CRM function now that's split across loyalty, SMS, app, web, then I've got the team. Then I still have to do the strategic customer, segmentation and the strategy, et cetera, et cetera. I think I would probably get lost in finding the time, right, to have all of these things that I'm looking at. So would it be best,
It's
right?
it's not a checklist. It's not a checklist. It's not a checklist that you would want to monitor day in and day out. But let's say, okay, so the most ideal way in today's world is to let an AI do all the monitoring for you and surface when there is a shift, right?
Yeah.
So let's say you could build dashboards. You could build dashboards in your own analytics platform, whether it is, let's say, right from Grafana to uh, Kubernetes to any other platform that you're using. You can actually build your own dashboards and monitor. But again, as you rightly said, this can be overwhelming at some point. So I'd probably let the system do the monitoring for me, and then just alert me when there is a shift.
Right? I agree.
So without doing, again, sorry, just one more point here. Without doing any change, you would not see any shift. So at least the moment you start introducing changes, just keep in mind that it's not very significant change, so that it's sort of very subtle changes that you introduce, and see the shifts and in your alerts, and take it from there.
Okay, so I've got a few questions here. There's one really interesting one from, we've got one from Rahul and one from Saravani. Rahul is, how do you approach the madness of Microsoft spam filters?
Microsoft is stricter than others. That is given. I think the audience segmentation is where I think it all boils down to. I think the way you'd probably segment other mailbox providers is not the same way that you'd probably want to treat Outlook audience. So you might want to apply a bit more, maybe narrower rules to get you to the best audience, and then do the campaign. Again, this is dependent on campaign to campaign, but then I'd probably treat Outlook as a very different entity than my rest of the campaign. So my segmentation would be very different for Outlook than, let's say, what it is for Gmail.
Oh, okay. So you have to be a bit more specific with Outlook and have different segmentations. Rahul, it sounds like you're going to have to do a little bit more work, but I think that would actually help with the spam filter madness. Very interesting. Please ask a follow-up question if you do have one. I like this one from Saravani, and I hope I've said your name correctly. If AI automates email operational tasks, then what skills should an email marketer develop to remain valuable and future ready?
Okay. So again, what AI does is the data analysis bit, which is again a time-consuming operational tasks. The way I'd probably see is that the operational tasks an AI can probably take over, and then do the operational bits, and then let the strategic bit stay with the humans. So that's where you'll definitely need an input, right? So, hey, my sale is coming up. What kind of campaign? We know our audience much better. We know the brand much better. We know the campaigns much better. So we would want to, do those kind of strategic, things that would probably stay with us. But maybe the ops bits, purely ops bits, would probably be done with the AI.
I agree. Like even now at the company, we use AI, but it's purely for doing the heavy lifting. I think sometimes even data analysts, they're pressed for time. This can churn the data quite quickly, but it is very operational. And how I make sure that I stay valuable is making sure that I understand how to get the best insights out of the tool. Because anyone can drop, even ChatGPT that you paid £20 for, you drop information in, and it gets it wrong. So
you get something out of it. But is it really relevant for you? Is a matter of
exactly. So
question.
The relevancy is how you can actually get the gold mine out of all of that data. Like all it's doing is processing, but it takes your knowledge and your insights to bring that to life and bring it into a strategy. So that's how you stay future ready, of being a master of how to interpret the stuff that comes out of AI. I see Matthew is joining us. Like, are you telling us we're out of time? Please don't say we are.
Not yet, but we're getting very close.
Okay.
We have about 3 minutes left. There was one question There was one question that came through the
Oh.
chat that I was asked to come in and
Oh,
provide some
okay,
thoughts
go
on.
ahead. Is it the very difficult B2B question?
It is the castle question, actually.
Go
Oh.
ahead.
So being
There's no
part
one-
of the Canadian Email Summit, I thought we might as well
there's
take
no
a
one better
question
than
about
you.
the Canadian anti-spam law while we're here.
Go ahead.
So there's a number of things that come into play when you're sending messages in Canada. And what falls underneath the legislation. I think first off, you have to determine, is the message that you're sending commercial, right? CASL covers commercial messages. It doesn't cover one-to-one, sort of those types of messages. So when you're thinking about the types of communications you're sending and the campaigns that you want to run, that should be sort of the first thing in your mind. The second thing, if it is determined to be commercial, you should then say, do I have consent to the send to this individual, whether it's an implied or an express consent? Do I have proper postal and identification messaging within the message? Do I have a valid working unsubscribe? And if the message is commercial, those things all apply. If you deem the message is not commercial, like if I'm emailing CC, for example, we have a personal relationship. As long as I'm not trying to sell him anything, we can communicate. We actually trade emails all the time. We used to work together for several years. So we spend time communicating about all kinds of things. So really, I think when you're building your messaging, that's the one thing I think your first decision, is this a commercial message or not? If it is, then you need to consider all the things that apply under CASL. If it's not a commercial message, CASL probably doesn't apply to it. It's not really a clear question, but I would invite you to come and ask that in person to the CRTC, if you would like. They will be at our session doing a Q&A with the audience. So I think we are out of time, but if you want to continue with another question or two, I do have a few extra minutes, but I know we're right at the top of the hour, so it's up to you.
Okay. I don't mind doing one more, but if we are out of time, I'll let the...
Let's do one more and then we'll...
I think we can probably take a question or two, yeah.
Okay, I like this one. Okay, it's from Shirashan. I know I messed that up, so forgive me. What deliverability decisions can we trust AI to make today, and where is human judgment still essential?
You can... Okay, so firstly, when it comes to deliverability, if what you're trying to do with AI is to just understand a bit more about the data, right? So if you cannot decide based on what AI says, but it's more about, it can actually show you, it can surface some insights. Based on that insights, you need to probably make. So it can probably give you, this is what I'm saying. This is the likely, this is the likely reason for it, and this is the likely fix for it.
Yeah.
Until then, it is good. But then taking that likely fix and saying, yes, this is the fix for my issue, is the judgment that you're going to make, right? So
yeah.
that nobody else is going to make. And sometimes those recommendations could definitely be wrong, right? So that is something. So rely more on data analysis but less on the judgments it's going to make, because it does not have the context of your data. It does not have the context of your business case. It does not have the context of your current reputation and all of this. So it's sort of, it's sort of take, get some insights out of it, get the recommendations out of it, but just don't go blindly implementing it. So validate it against your own intuition and then go with it.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, I know we're at time, and there was another question about generated AI and ISPs, but I will implore you to contact CC directly. He's not busy. You can ask him that question. He's not busy.
I should not have told you about my day today.
But I just want to thank everybody. Thank you so much for spending this time with us and for all the amazing questions. I really do hope that you had a great, insightful session with us today. Feel free to also message the Mailora team, but also feel free to message feel free to message everybody. I think we're all very open to answering questions. Matthew is very well versed, especially as the Canadian Email Summit is coming up. There are lots of things to talk about, lots of things to discuss. So I think we're all very open to kind of just continuing the conversation and making sure you're getting the best out of these resources. So the recording will be sent to everyone. You'll also get a certificate, like a learning participation certificate, which is fantastic. But once again, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for spending this hour with us. And we hope to see you at the next one. We've got loads coming up, and I think we'll be posting those online on our socials. And please do check out the actual email summit, because there are lots of great speakers there too. It's a season of learning, so don't be left behind. So thank you, and I will see you on the next one. Matthew?
Yeah, I just want to thank the Mailer team for sponsoring and participating in the Canadian Email Summit, and I hope to see everyone there. The leftover questions, I will coordinate with CC, and we'll come up with some answers and share those out as well. So, because there's certainly a few more privacy-related ones, I think, than delivery-related ones. So, CC and I can team up and make some joint content there. So,
oh, good. Oh, good.
Thank you, everyone, for participating and joining us today. And thank you both for the awesome session and discussion.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you all. Have a good day. Bye-bye.